Hello, my name is Phil Anderson, and I'm running for United States Senate to represent Wisconsin. Forgive me for being a little disheveled tonight. I'm in the garage. I just finished stapling a bunch of yard signs together. We've got a new design, as I showed you a few days ago. I've got 30 more ready to go. 20 are already headed up north to be dropped off with a volunteer in Merrill, and there'll be more going to Milwaukee this weekend, Eau Claire tomorrow, all over the state. Our new designed yard signs as well as road signs are on order, bumper stickers, etc. So that's kind of what I'm doing out here, is working with campaign stuff. Not the most glorious part of campaigning or being a candidate running for any office, but it's the work that needs to be done, and I have no problem doing it. But that's not what I want to talk about tonight. I want to talk tonight about democracy. We talk a lot in America, in the media, and about how we identify ourselves as democratic, as democracy, and one of the things that we talk about is spreading democracy across the world, and how that's such a good thing. I would argue that in America and around the world that there's way too much democracy. Too much democracy. And let me tell you what I mean by that. Our founders and the principles of our country understood that rights belong to the individual, that whether you believe in God or not or whoever, that it's individuals that have rights and that they are governed by their own consent. That is, that they have the rights to expression, to freedom, to defend themselves, to be secure in their persons and their property, etc., etc. And the Constitution defends those rights without a vote. It's not a question of, the Bill of Rights and you can vote on these things and change them. These are recognition of what are inherent in human beings, and the job of the government is to guard those, is to safeguard those, to preserve those, and to retain that understanding that in a truly free society, human beings practice those rights as they choose, as long as they don't infringe on the rights of others to do the same. Well, that's changed in the United States, and now we're in a situation where pretty much anything that can be voted on is voted on. We can vote away Second Amendment rights, we can vote away Fourth Amendment rights, we can vote away First Amendment rights. People have lost the understanding that these things aren't to be voted on. It's not a question of 51% or 60% or 99% deciding that these rights are obsolete or that they need to be modified or restrained or whatever. This is simply not the case. But that's what we've become. And I think that we need to look back, actually look forward, I guess I would say, to a time when we get back to the understanding that the rights belong to the individual. That me, as a human being, I have a right to express myself, freedom of religion, freedom to bear arms and defend myself, freedom to be secure in my property, free to do the things that I want to do on a daily basis with myself and my family and my property, as long as they don't interfere with the rights of others to do the same. That's the starting point of government. That's not something that can be modified by democracy. And I think we've lost that. So in the debates about Second Amendment rights, for example, or the Patriot Act or the NSA spying or whatever it might be, infringements on, especially the 10th Amendment actually, where that was supposed to be a limit on what the federal government could do, that anything not specifically written in the Constitution was left to the states. Well, that's gone by the wayside by activist judges and the Supreme Court that has decided that if they want to legislate from the bench, they just need to find some interpretation, some way or another, some way to convolute the Constitution so that they can do what they want, even if they're going against the original intent of the Constitution. And it's not just the Constitution. The Constitution in and of itself isn't something that's sacred. It's what it represents and what it states, somewhat imperfectly, but what it states. And that is that rights belong to the individual. And there's no government, no other person, no majority, no 51%, no 60%, no 99% that can take those away. I think we need to look at that as the standard by which we measure our government and by the standard by which we're being represented. And certainly, both my opponents and pretty much everybody in Congress for the last, I don't know how many years, a long, long time, all the presidents haven't had that in mind. They're looking at what they can do to you, for you, what they can take from you, what they can say they're doing from you, how they can supposedly represent you, how they can use the authority that you give them and amplify it, almost like the banking system, fractional reserve banking, where they take the authority that you give them and then multiply it by 10 and then use it against you or against at least 49%. That's completely out of whack. So my goal as senator is to get back to the idea that rights belong to the individual, and that as little should be decided democratically as possible. If at all possible, democratic decisions should take place on the lowest possible level of government or community or family or person, and what must be decided democratically should be, but it's not a way to impute a morality upon decisions. Anything that's decided democratically that's beyond the scope of individual rights is coercion, and it's an infringement on what God or whoever you believe in has given us as stated in the Constitution. Sorry that's a little convoluted, but basically it's this. It goes back to the non-aggression principle. I should be able to live my life as I choose, with all the rights that God or whoever you believe in gave you and me, and not be encroached upon by government, regardless of what majorities might exist in representation. That's what it is. As long as I'm not infringing on somebody else's rights, I should be free to do what I want. Live my life, dispose of my property, express myself, pray, love who I want, form contracts with who I want, marry who I want, whatever. All those things belong to me, not to you, not to 51% of you, not to 70% of you, not to 99% of you. Let's get back to looking at government that way, because that's the most just, the most fair, the most human, and the most free. Thanks very much, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.